let's make something together. You know, I asked a lot of people for funding as much as I could, and it was a risk, but I bet on myself, and that movie got me the full-time job I have right now.
Yes.
So sometimes we have to do these things, you know. We have to. And I had to say it. I had to say that. I had to get that out. And you know, it resonates with a lot of people. Some people, I don't know if it's like their cup of tea, but like that doesn't matter. Like I had to get it out. And those who are gonna get it, get it.
We're watching your films together, and sorry, my mind was just like every time. I was like, what the fuck? What? No. That was my reaction. Like, where do you get your ideas?
Where did you get all the cats?
So I went on a date with a guy who talked to his cat before the pandemic. He would like meow if he was like into something. He'd be like, that makes Gabby happy. I said, who's Gabby? He said, my cat. I was like, this is wild. So it's more like when something really surreal, and that was it, you know. But like when something really surreal like that happens to me, I'm kind of like, how do I process that? And at the same time, I was talking to my friends, and they were just telling me how cool their cats were. And they're just like, my cat is the coolest thing. And I was like, that's real, you know? Yeah. And I thought about how to synthesize this weird moment in my life into a story that made sense to me. I knew I kind of wanted to make a trilogy of shorts, and I have 4 that I ended up with, one from graduate school at USC. That's Exit Pursued by a Bear. But I knew I wanted to make 3 as work samples and just sort of expressions. Last Croissant and then Airway. So, and I knew Cat was going to be the 3rd. I just sort of decided that. We were going to shoot it in June of 2020, but that did not happen. That was not going to happen. But what that did was give me the opportunity to develop it further. I had the opportunity to work with an organization called Women in Media. They have this opportunity called camaraderie. And so they did sort of this development process, which was a huge gift. And Kat became a semi-finalist in the camaraderie opportunity. I felt like through Women in Media, I was able to take advantage of the time to develop. I think I wrote Kat for 2 years.
Oh my freaking fucking God. Sorry. I know. I can swear. It's my podcast. Yay! We were watching together, funny thing, even Valeria being in Rome and me being, I was in Iceland. Yeah, right. And me in Iceland, and we were watching your films together, and sorry, my mind was just like, and I was like, fuck, this is good. And I just started laughing. And every time I was like, what the fuck? What? No. That was my reaction. It was like, no. So I want to start with Cat 2024. Oh my God. I mean, you directed, you wrote it, you produced it, right? And our mutual friend, you want to tell us about her? She was the lead. How did she end up being the lead, please?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here, and thank you for watching my films, and thank you for your response to them. That's just warms my heart. Truly, thank you. Jodie Bentley is the lead in Cat, and she is an actress, producer, coach in the Los Angeles area, and we had mutual friends in common. And I had, at the beginning of 2020, made a short film called The Last Croissant, and it was featured on Funny or Die. And while I had posted about it on Facebook, people were commenting and saying congrats. And she said, let's make something together, you know? And then I wrote this for her. I wrote this with her in mind. And I think she's just amazing in it. Her performance just shines, and so much nuance in it. And, the character is her namesake too, but she's obviously a very different person. But
Yes.
we also filmed it at her home. She and her husband were so gracious to open up her home to me, and I actually wrote it for her house. So it was one of those things where that reach out can go a long way. I mean, I'm sure I would have worked with her at some point in the future, but for her to say, like, let's do something, it's sort of, if there's a good sort of synergy there creatively, someone may say yes, so it's just a good kind of note to self,
Okay, so, and I need to dive deeper. Like, where do you get your ideas? Because
Where did you get all the cats?
no, really. I was watching it, and then I watched. We're gonna go through all your films because they're just fucking fantastic. Like we love your humor, and we love the twist, and we love I was like, okay, I'm also gonna watch The Last Croissant. I'm also gonna watch. Wait a minute, I need to go down this rabbit hole. Like you kind of like lured me in and us.
Oh, thank you.
So, and the thing that popped up in my head was like, where did he get the idea? Like,
Sure.
where?
Sure.
Please
Well,
tell me.
Thank you for watching all my films. It's very
We're gonna
kind
do
of
it again,
you.
I think.
Thank you so much. Where? So, yeah, I think it's like, well, Cat, for example, I wrote that during the pandemic, and I just had a lot of time to think, you know. And I don't have a cat. I'm allergic to cats.
No, really.
Yeah, I don't even have, yeah.
That makes it even better somehow.
That makes the film even better, you guys. Sorry, I'm just gonna say, if you're listening or hopefully watching, you have to just go. We will have it in the show notes, everything from Jessica, obviously, so you can go and see it. Okay, if you don't even have cats, like, oh my God, this is even more funny.
So what happened was, before the pandemic, okay, so I went on a date with a guy who talked to his cat before the pandemic. And I was like, he would like meow if he was like into something. And I was like, this is interesting, and I gave him the note, you know what I mean? He couldn't really take it. But he'd be like, that makes Gabby happy. I said, who's Gabby? He said, my cat. I was like, this is wild. So it's more like when something really surreal, and that was it, you know what I mean? But like, this did not get entertained any further. But like, when something really surreal like that happens to me, I'm kind of like, how do I process that? And then at the same time, I was talking to my friends, and they were just telling me how cool their cats were. Like, talking about their cats in a way I don't hear people talk about other people. Even people's own kids. You know what I mean? And they're just like, my cat is the coolest thing. And I was like, I mean, that's real,
Yeah.
And I thought about, how to synthesize this weird moment in my life into a story that made sense to me. In that, like, in talking to my friends, I was like, and I don't think this is the answer, and I don't have a cat, right? But I was like, maybe that animal gives you just enough and not too much, and it's, for a workaholic woman, or just a woman or anybody who doesn't want to have to tend to something that much, that might be some sort of solution. It's not what I'm going down, but I just thought maybe this is the answer. I should also say at the same time, you know, you get to be of a certain age and you get targeted on Facebook with these dating coach ads. So there's a dating coach for the listeners in the movie, and it's like, who are these people selling thousands of dollars of coaching services to, you know, preying on women of a certain age and their insecurities and all that. So yeah, I talked to one once, like in the depths of the pandemic, and it was like, just, you could tell she was just noodling into like all the insecurities, and like we have a similar cultural background, and I could see exactly what she was doing. And she puts online like she has this great life. I mean, I think most of them do, and most of us do, but you know, and then like she had gone live one time, and she just in no way has been representing herself, you know, properly. And I just thought, who are these people? Who are these authorities we turn to, like in the depths of, you know, the evening?
Quite lucrative businesswoman.
Totally. And I just thought about like, what if both women in this movie get what they want? You know, what if it's a happy ending for all? And the thing she's peddling is ultimately the answer. Again, I'm at a different point in my life, but I wrote this at a point in my life when like there was no option other than to work and to, you know, grind on my writing and to, you know, be on my computer. And so that's sort of the amalgam of where it came from.
Wow. So good. I'm so glad you had to. I'm so glad you needed to process it. You know, that's for me what art is.
Excuse me.
Exactly that, in so many ways. Like, it was something for you to process. It was something for you just like, okay, I need to. Then Jodie comes into the picture and you're like, damn, okay, we're going to use this.
Yes.
And I think that is, and then what it is, in the end, what it then gave us as the audience, just me, for example, I can only take me. And I was just like, I just needed to see that. And I don't like cats. Like, I don't hate them or anything, but I have a dog. I'm the dog one, you know what I mean? There's always like, there's always the dog and the cat thing. Oh, yeah. And I have a dog, but I was like, oh my God, I needed to see that. It made me happy. It made me laugh. It made me question everything. It made me go like, what's the message? And then I was like, this is just hilarious. I don't care. It's just fucking funny. So it's like, but what I want to ask you also about it is like, you know, for those that are listening and watching it, and all of us, we want to like, you know, learn from each other, and like what steps did you need to take to make this film reality, production wise and casting and well, we talked about Jodie obviously, but there were other people in the film too. So yeah.
Sure. So I started writing Cat during the pandemic. I knew I kind of wanted to make a trilogy of shorts, and I have 4 that I ended up with, one from graduate school at USC. That's Exit Pursued by a Bear. But I knew I wanted to make 3 as work samples and just sort of expressions. Last Croissant and then Airway, which I shot February 27th of 2020. right under the gun there. And so, and I knew Cat was going to be the third. I just sort of decided that. And we were going to shoot it in June of 2020, but that did not happen. That was not going to happen. And so, but what that did was give me the opportunity to develop it further, you know. And look, it's a 9-minute short film. And in every iteration, there were always sort of attempts to make it shorter. This is probably a slightly longer version, not by much, but it just wanted to be 9 minutes. It just did. Excuse me. So in the development process itself, I had the opportunity to work with an organization called Women in Media. They're based in Los Angeles, and Tema Steg is the executive director and founder, I believe. And so they have this opportunity called camaraderie, like camaraderie. And so what it is a production opportunity for members to participate in and be in crew positions and come to support the work of a female identifying filmmaker. And so I had participated in it in 2019 as a choreographer. And so I knew about the program, but obviously it was 2020, so it needed to look a little different. And so they did sort of this development process, which was a huge gift. And Kat became a semi-finalist in the camaraderie opportunity. And I had months with them to develop it. I got very helpful notes. I got paired with a mentor in the business. Her name is Nancy Savoca, and she gave me notes on it. And she's the director of Dogfight, among other things. And that was just cool, you know, that we all got paired with someone who could really help shape it. And we had time, you know, we all had plenty of time. And so I felt like through Women in Media, I was able to take advantage of the time to develop. I think I wrote Kat for 2 years.
Got it. May I ask you a little bit more about this, because this is really interesting where we're going into here. When you say she helped you,
Sure.
like in what way, for example? Can you
Sure.
give us examples?
Sure.
That'd be
Yes.
cool.
To clarify, structural notes. Structural notes, and just sort of, you know, the reminder that short films are these little gems, you know, and just saying to me, like, you know, some people are going to want to say, make this a movie, make this a TV series, make this whatever, but you get to decide if it just wants to be this little gem or not. Now, I'm open to possibilities, but it was just really helpful to focus in that way on making it this word she used, little gem, you know. And she really helped me sort of distinguish, right, between the idea of being a dog owner, being a cat owner, right? Dogs take more work, right? So the idea that she helped me lean into Jodie's, the character, psychology, and just say out loud what I was already thinking.
Okay.
She's great at development, you know, and that was great. And I think she had I can't remember exactly, but I think there were a few shooting suggestions. Probably she's a director. And so that was sort of lovely, you know, just to have, I think we had 3 meetings or something, and I would show a draft, and, you know, it's great to have those deadlines and those conversations, and, you know, it was a time when everyone was available.
Was for the script.
That was just the script. Yeah, we're not even talking production. Yeah.
We're not even coming to
We're not talking
production.
production,
So
yeah.
was the production also in this program?
So you could sort of get to that next place with it. And I decided to ultimately sort of like, and then I got into USC for the fall of 21 to get my master's in film and television production. So I didn't know that when I had kind of put Kat in the mix. So I said, you know what, I'm going to put a pin in potentially, you know, producing this with Women in Media, but, you know, I got to go focus on school. I don't know how the timeline will intersect, but they were such an amazing part of the development, you know what I mean? And and I ended up, so there were a couple false starts with producing Cat. I tried to do it, I wanted to do it. I was so hungry to shoot something, you know, in like September 2020. And I remember my best friend's brother, who was a doctor, just like got COVID and was like face down in the hospital taking remdesivir. I'm like, this isn't worth it. Like I, you know, I really wanted to do it. And we pressed pause again. And then there was another time, 2021, we were going to do it. And like just timing didn't line up. Anyway, long story short, I did it finally. Again, it was very similar. Like the cinematographer, Dale Kim, was, I believe, a semester or a year behind me at USC. And he said to me, let's do something. And I was like, okay, I have this. So
Hell
you know,
yeah.
that's what happened. It was in a really good spot. It had been sort of primed. And I think I decided I wanted to just do it and get it done on my own. And in addition to being in the USC program right before that, also during the pandemic, I was in the UCLA Extension directing program. And
Okay.
I know, so I got like a certificate and a master's in the span of like, I don't know, 4 years. It was a lot.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So, but in the summer, there was a summer I decided to shoot Cat. There was an accompanying class at UCLA Extension where you make a short film. And I mean, for the listeners, right, if you go to a school program, your permits are, you know, a tad cheaper. And
Exactly.
UCLA has these incredible locations, which to give to students at a fraction of the cost. I mean, so I thought, I took the class over the summer of 2022, and we got student permit rates and some really nice locations at UCLA, which, you know, one of which is their botanic gardens. And they said, you know, we've never shot a wedding here. I said, they're like, can we use some photos for our brochure? You know.
Did they know what you were shooting?
No.
What kind of wedding it would be?
And my co-producer's like, we should have just sent it to them. I was like, but they're so nice. I had to tell them. I was like, I don't think you want these.
Did they use those photos?
I mean, I would have. I mean, they were great. We got all these great stills.
It's a gorgeous wedding. You guys, I'm sorry.
Yes.
We're laughing like crazy here. I don't want to, I don't want to spoil the film. I don't want you guys to watch it. It is so funny. And now that you're talking about the wedding, and now that you're talking about the wedding, and them going like, can we have the... I'm sorry. I just can't stop laughing.
No, oh my God.
Oh, that is
You're
hilarious.
tearing up. I'm dead. Okay, I'm so honored. Yeah, so that was at their botanic garden. And then the restaurant scenes, the date scenes, were at like... a really nice area UCLA has where, you know, it's like a little cafe and you turn on some lights and it looks like a nice restaurant. You know what I mean? So I was just being resourceful and pragmatic. And so I shot it technically through UCLA Extension, but it's really, you know, I raised the funds is the long and short of it. I asked a lot of people for funding as much as I could, and it was a risk, but I bet on myself, and that movie got me the full-time job I have right now.
Yes.
And it has paid for itself. So sometimes, I mean, we have to do these things, you know? We have to, and I had to say it. I had to say that. I had to get that out. And, you know, it resonates with a lot of people. Some people, I don't know if it's like their cup of tea, but like, that doesn't matter. Like, I had to get it out. And those who are going to get it. You know what I mean? That's sort of how it works, right? At any kind of
But
art.
that's what I love about this,
That's
and it's
beautiful.
exactly that what we're always talking about. There is not one path; it just doesn't exist. It doesn't. And also, you know, you tried and it didn't work, and then the next year tried and it didn't work, and then everything aligned in a way that you just said, you know what, I'm doing it this way,
Yeah.
and thank God you did.
Yes, I'm employed because of it. You know what I mean? Like quite literally, you know. And so you, it's like, yes, it was, I just had to get it out. You know, completion is part of the artistic process.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
But that's not the only project that came out of the pandemic, though, is it? And the other one is quite a thing as well. And what I want to ask before asking that question, because we obviously are talking about another short, Exit Pursued by a Bear.
Oh my God, yeah.
And that one was like, it blew us away. I think that was the one that we started with.
Yeah.
And to tell you the truth, we were just preparing for the interview. It wasn't the intention to watch the entire, you know, like your filmography at one sitting. It was just like the inspiration of the moment, honestly. And how it happened, we started and we couldn't just put a pause on it or something. So we started with Exit Pursued by a Bear. There is quite a lot of choreography featured in that movie. And I know that that's how you started. You told us that you studied at music theater, that you were a choreographer yourself. You obviously directed music theater as well. And can you maybe talk a little bit about your beginning and what was music for you, what was choreography for you, and how it all, you know, were you doing choreography for your last short?
For
this,
Exit Pursued by a
yes.
Bear? Did you do that
Yes,
right?
I choreographed Exit Pursuit by a Bear. Yes.
So good,
Oh,
so
thank
good.
you.
Awesome.
So good.
So what was it about? How did this idea even came to your mind?
Sure. Well, yes, just in terms of my roots, I did grow up dancing around my room to Whitney Houston and Madonna, and really seeing the movie of Little Shop of Horrors, the movie musical, really something just clicked for me in terms of how you could take sort of pop rock music, as it were, and turn it into a narrative, right? Like it wasn't just going to be a pop song that sort of spun on itself lyrically. It was like it went somewhere. That was beyond thrilling to me. And I was 7 years old. Okay. So I knew that it was like it struck me like lightning, you know? I just knew that was going to be part of my life somehow. So it had to be. So I fell in love with musicals and devoted a good portion of my career and life to developing them, presenting them. I went to Northwestern. I studied musical theater, and there I met my one of my collaborators, but a very important collaborator to me, Michael Mahler, who wrote the music, and we co-wrote the lyrics to Exit Pursued by a Bear. So we had been writing on and off for a couple decades together. And in the interim, sort of in the midst of my theater career, I founded and ran a theater company for about 7 years in the northern suburbs of Chicago. And it was really a great opportunity. I got a 96-seat theater, and I learned how to run a business basically. And I found that, my sort of zone of genius, as it were, is obviously in the creative space. And so, but it gave me this ability that I fundraised. I learned how to ask, just unbridled, you know what I mean? Just if you need it and you think someone or a business can help you, a heartfelt, true ask, goes a long way. And that's, in terms of equipment and resources and funding, I've taken all those principles I learned from running the theater company into my sort of independent short films, as it were. So, and people are happy to help. That's the other thing, it's just sort of like this joyous exchange as far as I'm concerned. And so so I choreographed off Broadway. I went to New York for a time, came back to Chicago, choreographed around the city, choreographed in DC. I got like a Helen Hayes Award for choreography. So it's always been sort of, the work has been in my body. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And right now, it's almost like that same energy is coming out in writing. It's just coming out of my fingers and I type instead of me busting a move, which I can still do. But this is all the theater, all the dance, all the music training I have has sort of merged into this filmmaking experience and life, because it all meets there, you know. And so, you know, editing is music to me.
Yeah.
Editing is rhythm. The camera dances. You know what I mean? The most exciting.
No, rhyme, also in writing, it's also kind of, you know, you need to, especially screenwriting. If you're writing, you need to use white space, pauses, all the dots, and it all kind of becomes this little dance on its own on the page.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's rhythm. There's rhythm to dialogue, right? There's rhythm to the visuals. So for me, that's, I think, always my guiding force, is sort of like feeling it in the body and then executing it. So Exit Pursued by a Bear is based on a true story about a bear that was in my neighborhood for about 3 months towards the end of the pandemic. And we literally had just gotten vaccinated, you know, and then it was like, just when you think it's safe to go out, you know,
You can't.
there was like one more thing. Like, I went for coffee, finally left my house, and I was like, bear anywhere, you know. And what was so adorable was, you know, I lived in Eagle Rock, and it's a little neighborhood sort of just west of Pasadena in Los Angeles, and it's a lovely community, and there was a Facebook group, and so people were freaking out, you know, in the Facebook groups, just like, did you see it? Did you see it? Did you see it? It's over there. It's over there. Like, it came by me, and then it's gone. You know what I mean? So, like, Fish and Game would not come by because it has to be in front of you, but an animal's going to keep moving. So it was like outsmarting the system. And then one day I wake up to like jet fuel, like the scent of jet fuel at 3 a.m, like outside my apartment. And I was like, what is this? And there's a helicopter with a spotlight trying to find the bear. I was like, are you going to arrest this bear? Like, what are you going to do with it?
Put a handcuffs on him.
I couldn't believe it. So
Stop! Don't move.
exactly, that thing's moving. You know, I guess they were just trying to like scare it into back to the mountains or whatever. But 3 months, it kept popping up, and it was hilarious. 3 months. I mean, I thought, and then they found her cubs, and you know, it was like,
Just looking for food.
oh yeah, you know. And so it made me think about like, nobody cares if like we've been sitting inside and now want to go outside. Like, nobody cares what we want. You know what I mean? Like, this is not, it's the benign indifference of the universe, you know? And so, developed that for a year. I knew for grad school there was this slot in this famously sort of notorious class called 508 at USC. It's your second semester of your first year. First year is quite challenging and just very rigorous. The whole program is, but first year especially. And so my mentor, who, you know, they assign you a mentor your first year at USC, and it's usually the person who interviewed you to get into the school. And so mine was a great, she's still there, a woman named Diane Farrington. She's a cinematographer and camera op, and awesome woman. And just told me, you know, start writing over the summer. Get your 508 ready. And this slot can be, it's supposed to just be an exercise. You know what I mean? It's supposed to be just not a throwaway, but like, when I would tell professors my goals for my 508, they're like, well, no one's going to do that based on this, you know, the slot, you know, this kind of film. And I was like, oh. And so I just
Really?
poured it. I like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have time to spare. You know what I mean? Like, I'm here to learn, and I learned a ton. But I was like, let's execute as well as ideate, right? Which is what I do. And I think what I'm known for, right, is like, I'm not one to just talk about a project. We're either going to do it or maybe we're not, right? So here I was like,
I love that.
let's go. Let's go. And I had, you know, my amazing team work with me. I had professionals with me, you know, again, you have to keep it to a certain dollar amount. And I did. And like, you just hope for the best, but I planned for that. I learned, you know, I mean, I know how important pre-pro is, but especially with something like a musical, I really had it down to the T, and I felt proud of how we executed it. And so, you know, it's one of those things where like the bears are kind of like this metaphor for COVID, and then the actors playing the bears flew in and got COVID. And so we only had 2 weekends to shoot it. And so you just have to adjust. But fortunately, we had prepped everything with my camera team. We had prepped everything. And the actors had been rehearsed. We just swapped days and hoped that they would get over COVID in a week. I felt terrible for them.
No, they really flew in and got COVID. Damn.
I know.
Damn.
But it's like, if we hadn't been ready, the thing would have fallen apart. We didn't get 4, you know, it's just these 4 shooting days that the school gives you.
So here we're talking about the quality and the importance of a good pre-production.
Absolutely.
Because it was so well, like the pre-production, you were so on top of it. As you said, it is a musical. You had it all. So even them, which is obviously, I'm sure you felt like shit because they come in, fly in again, then COVID.
So bad, yeah.
Thank God nothing happened and everything is good. But because you had that amazing plan in pre-production, you could just swap and everything went well.
It's what it's
Swap
about.
the dates.
It's what it's about, you know, and it gave me sort of like, I don't want to say confidence, but it just validated that like, oh yeah, getting that granular is exactly what needs to happen, you know, because anything can happen, right? Weather, whatever, you know, so knowing where you're going is really important. And if you've called the party, right, you might as well do it right, you know? So.
Yeah, we kind of talked about all the important points, apart from one. Where do you get your sense of humor from?
Yes.
Because that is something.
Well, I think it's really probably my father, but also my mother's pretty funny.
So it runs in the family.
Yeah, I think culturally, the culture I come from, we've sort of dealt with a lot of, how do you say, running for our lives. And so I think we've developed this sense of humor as a way to survive, frankly. So it's actually, I don't want to say this is survival for me, but I mean, it sort of is.
It can be. It can be. It is. And you know what it does? It does save us. That's the thing. That's what your art did for us. Like it really, to be very personal here, I lost my grandma and I was home because of the funeral, and then watching your films just made my fucking day. And it you know, it was just this, it gave me the laughter, and it gave me just this, you know, beauty back. And so it does save us. That's why art is so important. And being able to laugh, it heals on so many levels. So thank you so much for that. No, I do have to say,
And that's what storytelling does.
Yeah.
But I also want to ask you about the second city, because this is something very exciting. It's obviously a prominent thing, and you said that you took classes there. What was your experience, and when was it? What did you learn from that? What did you take? What was, you know, something that you developed there?
So it's kind of twofold. I actually ended up taking Second City formal classes like
Mm.
later in life, and I'm going to come back to that because it's relevant. But
Important.
I did take a class kind of while I was running the theater company, just because I wanted to kind of mix up what I was doing, um, just sort of check in with that side of myself. And the way Second City uh, and its traditions and its sort of mindset um, has seeped into the ethos of Chicago theater is quite significant, right? There's this sense of ensemble, there's this sense of yes and, there's this sense of I got your back, this sense of the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, right? We support each other. So I didn't realize it until much later, and I had sort of read about the foundations of Second City, you know, University of Chicago and so forth, where this was about sort of this like mind meld around creating something together. And that's what we did in Chicago theater. That's what Chicago theater is about. And that's my ethos still. That's how I work, you know. Now that's not really how the coasts work entirely. I think things work better when you do that. But I think there's more of a focus on self and that's okay too. You know what I mean? Like it can work, you know? So my journey has been to like meld those two worlds is like, okay, we're not in Kansas anymore. You know what I mean? Like we're not here to, you know, just sort of, the rules are different, but, I am a collaborative director. But I know exactly what I want and what I'm doing. You know, I am, yeah, I'm gonna hire Jody and I'm gonna write for her, right? I'm working with her, you know, to do that. But yeah, I wrote it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's
Yes.
it's okay to say that. You know what I mean? And you sort of
Yes.
have to if you're in sort of this
Have to.
coastal, you know what I mean? But it's like I did it, you know. But the ethos is gonna be within me forever. You know what I mean? And that's I think what makes me a strong artist, frankly, is being able to work with the humans in front of you, no matter what kind of day anyone's having, you know. So, you asked about Second City. So you know, you grow up going to shows and you see sort of how everything crackles and bounces off them, and you know, they do sketch, they do a bit of improv, and you just kind of know it's there, this like amazing staple and center. And then so I took a class later on, and then what's funny is I actually left LA for a few months, and I came to Chicago to just like kick it with my fam while things are sort of getting sorted out, and in LA. And I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take a class at Second City. So I just took stand up at Second City, and it was so great just to get up there and like have 5 minutes to say whatever you want, you know. And they don't even have to laugh. No,
That's brave.
I know, right? And they did. I know, and they did. And what's crazy, and the reason I'm telling you this story is because like my teacher then just hired me for a stand-up gig. Like I am getting now paid to be a stand-up comedian. Like next Sunday, like this Sunday. Like I
Wow.
It makes sense.
it's wild, you know, this sort of evolution. And it's like, look, my best days are on set, like no doubt, you know. And in the interim, while like my living space is being sort of cleaned and I'm figuring things out, it's like, just tell some jokes.
Yeah, but wait a second. It is such a different headspace.
It
You know? Like while you're writing, you know, you have time, and then stand-up comedy live. To me, it's something that you know I would never be able to do. This is so like a vulnerable place as well. How do you prep yourself for that? Or is it just something that comes natural to you?
Well, no, I think I get to a point in my life where I'm like, I don't care if they're gonna laugh. And I think that's the key. That's really what it's
I
about.
love it.
And I think taking this back to my own writing is just making me more audacious. And like validating what I'm talking about, you know, because my set's about like women's health and perimenopause. It's just like how we're overlooked. I mean, it's the same sort of idea of like, you know, I think I tell stories about women dealing with the absurdity of a world that says there's only one way to be. You know what I mean? And here in my comedy, it's just like, I feel like, you know, women can be treated like second-class citizens, but not when I'm up there. You know what I mean? Like that's, it's sort of the same idea, you know? And it came from weird experience. Everything, it's the same thing as my filmmaking. I'm just talking about weird experiences. Like a male gynecologist, you know, I'm on the table in the middle of it. He takes a call from his wife and he goes, honey, what do you want? I'm in the middle of someone's business.
Nice.
Do you know what I mean? Who does that?
Who does that? Right. Oh my God. That is crazy. So it is like for us here in Europe, like when people talk about Second City, it's all that they say and more. Because there is, you know, this, at least the way we've heard and what was talked about, it's just this perfect world in a sense of that's where you really learn and come out of it as like a stand-up comedian, or you know how to work with that, you know, with comedy, which is really hard. Comedy is not easy, as we know.
Well,
Is that way?
it's interesting because I'll take a step back and then I'll come back to Second City, which is I think I took this exact same class like 15 years ago, you know, and I just wasn't as assured in myself or what I needed to say, or that I was even speaking using comedy. I was in musical theater, you know, being, you know, pretty serious about it. And what happened was I wrote this play in like 2015, and it was about like a young woman who, it was kind of like Sunset Boulevard-y, but like the genders were flipped, and like and the woman goes and like she can't get any other gigs and she just wants to be a writer, but she can never sit down and write, and she goes and lives with like, you know, a completely like a washed up you know, heavy metal rock star, you know, and it's just insane, you know. And I really thought I was saying something about like capitalism and art, and like how we as artists just like have so it's a hard time and everything like that. And I presented it at this theater called the Barn in Maine, and I'll never forget this, right? And I don't know any of these people, right? I'm in Maine, like I'm just doing it with these nice people who have hosted me, and I thought it was so serious, and everybody laughed. And I was like, oh, I see. This is my quote comedic voice, right? It's just telling the truth, and like people are going to think it's funny because the way I process it, or the way, the way I experience things, or the weird things that happen to me, I don't know, that just get sort of synthesized through my voice. People then find it funny. So all to say, I had gone to Second City. You know, you go to Second City in Chicago, they got these quotes from Amy Poehler and Tina Fey and these big faces of everyone who was famous. And you're just like, I'll never be that funny. You know what I mean? Like, is sort of like the fear when you're in not a secure place around this. But having come back and like made a bunch of films, knowing my writer voice, knowing I know how to just straight up tell a joke now, you know, I came back in a totally different place, you know, and nothing on that wall intimidated me at all, you know. And so,
It's about right timing.
yeah. And so it's really about like the balls to get up there at this point, you know. I had also like spent all of the pandemic like just like being the comic relief on many Zooms, you know what I mean? So I really also like, they say like find your clown, like I think that's like a Groundlings thing, but like find your clown. Like I had found it. I had found like my voice in that way. And so now I'm just like, wow, I got a gig out of that. That's pretty cool. Now, am I going to go down that road? I don't, God, no. I'm open to whatever at this point. But I guess it was incredibly empowering.
Yeah, I can believe
It's
that.
incredibly empowering. It's a lot cheaper than making a film, let me tell you. But filmmaking is where I'm going. I think it all feeds. It all feeds as far as I'm concerned. So.
And it's this experience that you accumulated through the years. And you said you were there, you were insecure and all of that. But now, as you said, you've made all these films. You've found on Zoom that there's a certain, what makes people laugh in a sense of just, your talent. And this is a different headspace when you walk in there, being able then to look at all these stars, these huge names, and just say, hell yeah, well done. And now I'm going up.
Yeah. It's so interesting.
That's
and it's like the insecurity would come from like the need to make people laugh, the need to be funny. Like I guess what I'm saying, like by learning about that main thing, I was like, you cannot try or you will fail. Like that, me, like I cannot be consciously, attempting, or it's over. It's like the thing about like, you have to not care to get the thing you want. But it's a muscle you build, I think, if you're going to work in this medium, is like...
Yes, I think
I think it's also... I don't know if you think about that, but like these days, this is a quite hard topic when you're making some sort of generalizations. And I think that comedy is a lot about that. You're noticing something about a particular group of people and you're kind of like pointing it out and raise it to the level of absurdity. Then that thing can easily... upset someone, it can offend someone. So how do you not get that kind of stuck into your head as well?
That's a great question. I mean, I'm always working with my own experience. And if someone wants to be offended by me making fun of myself or my own experience, I have a really good therapist for them.
That's good. I love it. Yeah, but I think it's like two folds of the same thing. Like you cannot you cannot care about making them laugh. You cannot probably care as well about offending them. Not doing it on purpose as well, but that's kind of the point of being comfortable with the story you're telling and not caring about the feedback that much.
Okay, sorry. We're gonna put the therapist in the show notes. No, joking.
Exactly. We all need this amazing human being.
There are a few. Listen, it's not that I don't set out to offend. I mean, there are some comics who this is their thing.
Sure.
I'm just here to talk about the BS we deal with. You know what I mean? And my style, it doesn't involve that. I would not engage in that, an intention. We say punch up, don't punch down, right? If you're gonna, but I don't go after like general groups. I'm taking on institutions. You know what I'm saying? The idea of like, why isn't there a test for HPV for men? And if you're offended by that, like, I don't need you in my space anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like, but there's no like one group that's gonna get like singularly offended. In fact, maybe Big Pharma will take a tip. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, so, but yeah, I know other people in the field are concerned about it.
Oh, that's wild. I watched a couple of specials. I don't remember who it was in particular, but I enjoy watching, comedic specials of different people. And as wild, they pick up at people at the audiences. And even me being like behind, like on the other side of the screen makes me so uncomfortable for both the person who is doing that and the person who is in the room kind of getting this type of thing. But I mean, it's fun. Like if everyone is having a good time, why not? But I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, it's a daring space. no matter for
It's a
everyone to
dangerous
enter
place.
into. You really don't know what you're gonna get, you know?
Yes.
Which is sort of the fun of it. It's sort of this like heated thing of who's gonna say what. But adrenaline, yeah, because you don't know if your stuff's gonna land. But like I am not an insult comic. I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not here to, you know, that's just I'm in a different zone. I just need a rant. That's what I'm doing.
Do you have someone you test your jokes on, like someone you trust, someone who is like, oh, that's funny, then you can use it?
It's so funny you asked that. So it was nice to have the class. And what I did want to come back to Second City about is in terms of like their training and their ethos is, I don't want to say it's not results oriented because that's not true. It is very process oriented. And again, that seeped into Chicago theater, and that's where I live, right? And so, and I deliver results. But what's great about it is so to answer your question, I had a really great teacher. His name is Mark James Heath, and he asked me to be a part of his show, which by the way is called Black Dad. Okay. And I'm like, I was like, are you sure? Like, you want me? He's like, no, it's cool. Cause it's about
sure?
like, you know, changing the narrative around, you know, people who are sort of you know, unseen. Or
Right.
I was like, okay, cool. But I just, you know what I mean? But he's an amazing teacher because he was like, it's very organic, you know, you just get up there and you just like, and he announces you like you're a stand-up, you know, and you get there and you stand at the mic and there's like, how are you doing? And you just get to say how you're doing, you know, and you're just honest, and like materials just starts to flow, you know, and it's just, it's almost like you don't know what's happening, that it's happening. It's sleight of hand, right? So it's like, and then you get your 5 minutes, you know? And so the class sort of comes and like helps you whittle it down. He's a great guide. He was great, Mark James Heath. And then my old buddy, one of my oldest best friends, his name's Ron Ben Joseph. He's actually like, he's a great theater director, and he's a great coach for women who run businesses. He's coaches them in public speaking and how to run their business. He's just a genius. Anyway, so I go to him and I say, will you run my set down with me? So it's an old friend and then a new teacher, basically, is sort of who it's going to be right now, but it's all very new. like a week old we're talking about.
Okay.
I love that. Like we're going public
Yes,
with this immediately.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
That's the way to do it. Like let's just celebrate on this level. Like that's the only way. Like do or don't. No in between.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people like to talk.
No in between.
So.
Yeah, you don't. You take action. You do it.
No. I'm
Love
not one of
that.
the, you know, I think this is the thing that people, there's a lot of those scripts that just get kicked around Hollywood and then they sort of fade. And like, I get it. Like not everyone wants to, you know, independently make it happen anyway, you know, or you can't because it's tied up with, you know, legal things or whatever. But it's like, that's always heartbreaking for me when people work on things and then it just gets sort of, it just dissipates. And like some things maybe aren't meant to, you know, but that's
Right, right. And sometimes it does take time when we know that. And as you said yourself, like with Cat, it wasn't the first time around. It wasn't the second. It was the third time. And then it was done. You know, you just didn't give up.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You were not giving up. May I ask you something about that? I think you were talking about the asking. You know how to ask. You learned through having a theater company for 7 years, which is pretty awesome. Congratulations on that. 90 seats. I mean, that's pretty sexy. Can you tell us more about the ask? Because that's something that I have a hard time with. I have to admit, like really going and go like, you know, we're doing something awesome here. Do you want to support it? How do you do it? Like, what are the steps, or how do you ask? Is it a phone call? Is it in person? Is it an email? Is it all above?
Sure. Well, obviously the first step is knowing what you're making and what you have to offer, and not just what it is, but why you're doing it, why it's important, right? And then the big thing in being able to receive is identifying someone who can give, who is in the space to do so, who has the ability, the means, or even a business. If you see that a business has been supporting another organization, that means they have the bandwidth to do that. You know what I mean? If you see sponsored by, that company is sponsoring things. Do you know what I mean? Just keeping an eye out for who, identifying who.
Smart.
You know, and I know that from having run a business myself. It's like you can tell when someone is in a position to be able to be generous, right? So all of this is, I mean, this probably goes without saying, but it comes from relationships, right? It's just like, who do you naturally gravitate to? Who naturally gravitates to your work, you know? And then you get to know them as people, you know? And sort of, it's this organic, it's, thank you. It's this organic sort of flow, is the best way I can sort of say it. And finding people who believe in you, who like you, who want to support you, who will, yes, you can go on and on about the project, but unless it doesn't sound too off the rails to them, you know, they're behind you. That's what, you know, people would say to me at the theater company. And it was nice, and it was a little scary. I was like, oh, you really just want to go wherever I go? You know, and is amassing those humans, and they're around you, you know, they're available to all of us. And then I don't want to misquote this person. I think it's one second. It is. Her name is Lynn Twist, and she wrote a book called The Soul of Money. That money has a soul, and it is meant to transfer from one hand to the other, and that it is important to identify in fundraising the idea of what is enough. And with that in mind, you can take the fear and the terror out of asking if you know in your heart and in your soul that the funds you're asking for are something so important, is going to go to something so important that it would have to go there, that the support has to go there. It's a natural, it's like a magnet, right? It's a natural ebb and flow. So she also talks about getting money from people who, it's a story she has in her book about returning a check because she didn't feel it was like right who it came from and how it came to her. And it's so interesting, right? Just to kind of go, who it's coming from is important, you know? So all to say, I learned, you know, affirm and ask, affirm any support anyone's ever given to you. And then you say thank you with that, and you say, do you want to do this too, you know? And I had a non-for-profit structure at the theater, and then thereafter I joined Fractured Atlas, which I recommend, and I can act as like basically an independent non-for-profit, and I raised money for my films. I think I've raised like 1.5 between theater and film thus far. Did I set out to do that? No. But I needed to. There are people though who I think are like real like very gifted producers who, you know, who to whom I want to be working with so I can direct. You know what I mean? And I don't mind like going after financing or whatever, but while I do produce and I can make things happen, I've worked with a wonderful producer last year in a music video who just was outstanding and just helped me, you know, gave me the space to just create, which is where I'm my strongest. Now, in terms of these vendors, right, with equipment and stuff like that, you know, I moved to LA in 2017 and there was this moment of like, oh man, we haven't let women direct. You know, so these vendors were like, yo, like, hey, like Canon and folks were like, hey, we'll give you a camera for free. And I'm not going to turn that down. And I will say, like,
and why should you?
These vendors have been incredible. I mean, these are the tools. These are the democratizing tools. The digital age is democratizing. And God bless these vendors for giving us this stuff. Because, you know, we don't always have the resources. So, yeah. You know, look, I'm not looking to be in the, like, indie space for the rest of my, you know what I mean? But it's a good skill to have, and like,
yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do to make your film.
That's it.
You know, I mean, if there is a person on board who can do it professionally and you can just, you know, not think about it, completely delegate, that's beautiful. But I think as an independent filmmaker, it's important to know all sides of the craft and then to understand how to operate this machinery, because otherwise you're too dependent on other people, and that's not a good place, unfortunately.
Yeah, you get to say what you want to say. You know, you really do. And so, yeah, I learned it out of necessity, and now it's very fluid for me. And, you know, I don't want to say it can feel like begging, which is the uncomfortable part for people, I think. And if it's like, yo, do you want to like come on this journey with me? Like, do you want to be a part of this? And then like clue them in to the end of the process a little bit. Like, here's a cut, you know, in case you're curious, you know, or like, you know, here's a link, you can screen it with your friends, or like even like sitting down with them and just like showing them the link. Just taking that time is like, because these are folks who are not in the creative space. They're fascinated by it usually, you know. So,
did you raise some money for the Last Croissant?
Yes, and I want to tell you that the Last Croissant cost me $650, and it's probably my most successful film. So,
can we talk about the Last Croissant?
Can we talk about the Last Croissant?
Please.
Let's do it. You guys are so nice. Please. You're so nice to me.
We love your work.
We love your work. I just want to talk about the moment where the one behind the counter says, like, she does it literally every single day or something like that. And I was just like, huh? Like, what? And I kind of want to ask you, like, can you tell me the meaning behind that sentence and why?
She literally does this every day.
Why? Yeah. Why?
I know. That was an ad, actually, at the end. Yeah. Because I had this idea of just like, I think it's a French term, l'appel du vide, which is like, you know, like something about filling in the void or something. I don't think I got that translation exactly right, but it's the idea of like using your imagination to fill in like what could happen in this totally wild way, and totally from standing at, you know, way too many Starbucks, more than I care to admit, just having this moment of like, do not take that last bagel. Not today. Do not do that. And then like, what if, like, just like, what if somebody just like did that and like socked somebody for, like, I would never, but like you start to go there when you're standing there, like, not me, but like, would somebody? What would happen? You know what I mean? And so I just created this woman who like, whose minds go there. Her mind goes there. And then a friend of mine was like, what if she does this every day? I was like, that just took it to the next level. I just thought
It did. It really did.
I just thought, what if she
would-
does? That just makes it a million times worse. You know, it just put the cherry on top. And
Yeah.
that really, you know, and then it becomes this like existential movie somehow.
Yeah, the way she like takes, I mean, the actress is
She's
fantastic
phenomenal
in that film. I love it. Like her facial expressions, she doesn't do a lot, but there's so much she's saying, like just with one little eyebrow thing, or you know, it's amazing. And when she takes that back, like awkwardly for everyone else, she's like inhales the thing, and like even I was like, oh my god, where is she going with that? Like, can we just move on? Crazy. So funny.
She just did that. Like she just did that. Yeah, I think I was like, smell it. I was like,
Kudos to
smell
her.
it. And then it was just like, it went to this, right? And this is the collaboration aspect, right? Is like, her name's Jenna Rossman, by the way. She's amazing. She's in Washington, D.C.
Well done, woman.
Yes, she's an actress.
Well done.
Yes. So good. And like, I guess, yeah, just that collaborative spirit of like, I was never going to say to her, like, no, I just said smell it. Like, you know, it's like she's taking the script and running with it and taking these ideas and going, and yeah, and that's what you want, especially in comedy, right? Is like to find these people who are going to rub up against your ideas and go, yes, and I'm going to put my weird on this in a way that aligns with like what this character would be doing. Now, the fun story about Last Croissant was peak spontaneity, okay? And it was so cheap in part because I sort of didn't know any better. But it's like it was 2019 and I was flying between LA where I lived and then Washington DC where I was choreographing a play. It was a really fun play. But I had gigs in LA choreographing, like I did movement on a spot for Pantene and that kind of stuff. So I was just jetting, okay, a lot. And I got on a plane from LA to DC and I sat next to a DP randomly. He had just done a gig in LA or gone to some conference or something. And he worked at the time full time for like a plastic surgeon doing in-house video. You know what I mean? And he wanted to do something more creative. So I think one of the NBC for Women opportunities was coming up and I wanted to make a work sample. And I had been asking around the DC area, like, anyone want to do this? And it was going to be very expensive. And I was just like, this is hard. This is a lot for something. And I was choreographing a play at the same time. But anyway, so it was a lot. So I was like on the plane and I was telling him about this. I was like, well, I have this idea. You know, again, it's him saying like, well, I want to do something more creative. And I was like, well, I have this idea. This woman who punches out a guy for taking out the last croissant at the coffee shop, but she doesn't really do it, whatever. And he's like, oh, let's do it. So we're on the airplane and like 35,000 feet in the air, we start doing pre-pro. And I just like, I opened my computer. He's like, I have the perfect location. Like I bought Wi-Fi, whatever. And he's like, this is the cafe we should do it at. I was like, great. So it's like this great cafe in Tacoma Park, Maryland. I believe it's the Tacoma Brewing Company. And like, I went in the next day. Like we did this in 48 hours, long and short. I went in the next day. I got a vegan soup. I tipped them. I was like, hey, my name's Jessica. You know what I mean? I'm trying to do this opportunity for women filmmakers. Can I film here? And they're like, no one's here. We close. You know what I mean? I was like, well, what if I, can we just come for like we'll get it done in 2 hours. We'll do it in 2 hours, after hours. And I was like, I'll pay someone to stay. And they're like, oh, okay.
That changes.
And I was like,
No, okay.
yeah. But even still, like, you shoot in LA, this would have been like $5,000 an hour because they know everyone's a filmmaker and they know, what I mean? It's a line of profit for them. Like, God bless, But here, like, they don't have people calling all the time to do this. So they just like did me a solid. And I've put excuse me, it's Tacoma Beverage Company. I'm sorry. It's been a minute. They're amazing and they're still there and so nice. And I've been shouting them out in my marketing, since 2019, and they just did me such a solid, and it's a perfect location. I'm big on that. Just stumbling in as an indie filmmaker, stumbling into a location that's already set up for you. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it's great.
Yes.
It's great. And it's actually something I learned.
We love it.
Listening to Bradley Cooper talk about Star is Born, because Warner Brothers gave him 33 mil for that, but like it's ultimately not a ton of cash for something that big. And it was so interesting to hear him talk at like this PGA event, because I was like, he really approached it like an indie filmmaker, and like he called is it Willie Nelson at Coachella and just said, can I just get on your stage for 30 minutes? And like they shot that in 30 minutes. And it looks great. And the key is like prep and your DP. And it's like, you don't have to stand around for 4 hours if you don't have 4 hours, It was such an inspiring thing, when he called Lauren to get that scene on SNL, you know what I mean? Like he was borrowing and stealing at that level, you know what I mean? Which is amazing and inspiring and like so well done. But that 30-minute Coachella thing, I'll never forget it. Because it's like, you can do it. You can make it look great. And Matthew Libatique is an incredible DP and so forth. But it's like, you get it the right time, the right light, you just make it work. So I was like, I'm going to do this in 2 hours. I think we got it done in 2.5 hours. My purchases were, props for the food. And, all the actors came from the man in the film, Drew Copas. He was an actor in the play I was working on at the same time. And he provided me with all these incredible women. And I just looked at their videos. I cast them. I met them on set and we rocked it, And what was cool, speaking of ensemble, is like they all knew each other from the DC theater scene. So they had language with each other, And I felt like I was able to like sort of with the script, like merge it all together. And we shot it very quickly. And Jeff Fitzgerald, shout out to him. He's an incredible gaffer, DP. He had all this equipment and he just, God bless, like, let me use it all. He was like a blessing. So, and then we had
But did I understand you correctly? You just met
Correct.
him on that plane. You never met
No,
before. You didn't
no
know
idea.
who he was. How this conversation started? Hey, I'm a
is
filmmaker. Hey, I'm
networking.
pretty
DP.
much. I think there was someone in between us who eventually got up and was like, I'm out. I think I overheard him talking to the person in the middle, and then and I chimed in, and he,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
You
and then
jumped
we're
in.
like filmmaking, and the guy's like, I'm out. He left. So he moved to another seat.
Not
interested at
interested.
And like, can I just
Yeah.
go?
Yeah.
We're on a plane, but hey, whatever.
Exactly.
But that is like, so we jumped now from masterclass, from like funding and financing to masterclass of networking.
Yeah.
Just talk to
On
the
the plane.
dude on a plane.
I like talking to people when I'm in a talkative mood. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And it's
us
like,
too.
it's just like, it's genuine for me. Like, I'm not like,
Yeah.
I don't look at people and I'm like, I'm not like, I never think like, what can I get out of this? Like, that's not going to get you anywhere because everyone's going to know. You know what I mean? Like, it's so obvious, but I'm just like connecting on a real level with this person about like, that he's curious about LA and like, and I'm curious about like this completion of this idea that I'd had for a long time, and like, you know, here's someone experienced who can collab with me on this, and he opened it up to say, you know, I want to do something more creative. I was like, well, this is wild, but you know, and we just dove in, and it's very fruitful, and it really changed my entire life. That movie.
Again, goddamn good.
Thank you. Yeah, and it was one of those things where
Really good.
I had gone to, I don't know if this still exists, but it was a company called Brunchwork, and they had, this is a networking story, I guess. They had a brilliant CEOs of years of organizations and business folks for like an informal brunch, and they had brought in I think it's Mike Farah. I think he was the CEO or COO of Funny or Die at the time, and I wanted to meet him because I thought that would be, I knew comedy was where I wanted to go, you know, and so I met him, and I think I got his email, and I followed up with him, and then I sent him this, and he said, we're going to feature it. I said, oh, okay.
Okay.
And so I said, great. And then they gave me this really nice write-up, and they said, like, this is something like, this has more tension than a Martin Scorsese film, you know. I mean, it was cool, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
It's pretty wild. Let me just get his right title. So yes, he's CEO. Mike Farah, CEO. There we go. So
You got an amazing
Yes.
memory for names. Just out of your head, on the top of your head.
no,
Sorry,
but all to
continue.
say, like, but it's like, you can't hit a fuzzy target, right? Like, I'm not, like, you know, I'm not all over the map. I'm like, okay, here's a very specific thing I want to do. And now I'm writing multicam sitcoms, which is what I kind of came to USC to do, among other things. But I studied how to direct multicam sitcoms there. I learned that. I learned how to write them. I have, I think, 3 in development now, and a feature. So
Yes.
Congratulations.
thank you, and I'm talking to studios about them. So I feel like I'm the amazing things that the short films did for me was like hone the voice, right? Get sort of my aesthetic out there, you know, and people understand sort of what I'm about, who I am, getting to talk to amazing women like you and just speak at length a little more about it. And then people go, you know, what else would you like to do with this? You know, and Exit Pursued by a Bear got me an incredible job. I worked for a big showrunner last January through about May. I worked on 3 half-hour TV shows, many sold to networks, and I became like a interim creative exec and wrote on all these comedies. I mean, it was from that movie. It was from that movie. So your shorts can go pretty far, and they're worth the time and effort. You get to a point where you go, if I'm going to do a short, I'm going to do a feature, which is what I think Cat was sort of like the tipping point. It was very big project, and at some point you go, if you're going to call a party, just keep shooting.
But may we ask you that, because this has been amazing, and you're so funny.
Oh, thanks.
You're just so funny. I love it. What I want to ask you is, what is your next project? Like, what do you want to do next?
Sure. Well, I have a feature called Free Britney, about 2 women who go on a quest to free Britney Spears, only to realize they need to free themselves from their miserable lives. And it's a buddy girl road trip. comedy, and I'm
Love
writing it with my amazing writing partner Shoshana Bush, and we met writing jokes and copy at Michael Bay's office for this company he runs, and so um, I'm we've got a really strong draft, and been talking to people about making it happen. So that I started writing during the pandemic, and it feels like it's landing nicely. So I'd like to see that to fruition, and that's yeah,
Amen.
that's number one.
I'm not even doing this. For me, it's like talking to you, Jessica, now and getting to know you better. I'm like, yeah, she's gonna do it. Like it's gonna...
Being a filmmaker, you have to be superstitious.
I don't know,
All
like,
sorts of things.
it's true, but Jessica, you have this thing in you. You just
Yeah.
you do it.
But when you started writing it, did you know it's going to be a feature? Did you start off thinking about developing a feature? Or
I guess I knew it could go there. I made it as a short, and I think I wrote it to submit to the AFI Directors Workshop for Women, and I submitted it, and then that year, because of the pandemic, I think they decided not to hold one, and so I said, all right, well, now I have this, I have these characters, I have this arc, it's sort of the base of the story, and I kind of knew this would be a feature. I kind of knew. And so, you go to grad school for 3 years, and it's sort of, like we would pop in and out of it, and then I added Shoshana, and, once we met it, working at Bay's office, and it was just, she's amazing. She helps me, really flesh out who these people are and what they're doing, what they want, and she's very good at like dual protagonist things where I'm really strong at like one, and so she's created this great dynamic in the piece with it, and she's very funny. She's very funny. So she's brought in a wackier sense to it, where I can kind of get like a little maudlin about things, but it's like because it's personal, you know what I mean. So it's like, but I have a good feeling we're gonna make that one, and however it wants to happen, and then there are 3 sitcoms.
Me too.
Floating around that I'm extremely excited about. So, because I mean, and by the way, I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you so much.
And like honestly, I was welling up when you said that like it helped you to watch, because that's what I want, and that's why the TV aspect is interesting to me, because there's sort of this perpetual just churning out of stories with the same characters that are going to bring you comfort, that are going to make you laugh, hopefully, that are going to, like that. There's something about coming home to that, especially in the multicam, the sitcom format, that just helps. And so I'm just like very moved to hear that, like, I'm on that path, from someone else.
You are. You definitely are. I would love to ask you something, because I know from Valeria, she writes and has been writing her whole life, and is also fucking talented, amazing. Just the way she writes is so gorgeous. Jessica, when did you start to write? Because it sounds like it's so natural to you. I'm afraid of it. I'm like terrified of it. But when did you start writing? Like, as a child, like when you were young, or did you?
There was like a big sort of creative writing thing that was always going on in schools, and so I took like, enrichment classes my mom would send me to, at like a gifted and talented thing where you wrote your own books, and just to exercise that muscle. But I think I put it away. I wrote a little bit in high school, but I was really more there's generative art and there's interpretive art, and I think by the time I got to high school, I was like focusing on performing, because that's what like you do at that age, and then usually, and then sort of the gateway to everything else. And I knew I started choreographing like my senior junior or senior year in high school. And so I was sort of interpreting other people's stuff. Again, did a bit of writing, but got a little scared of it because like my high school was a public high school, but a really incredible arts program, and there still is a project called Stunts, called Student Theater Under No Teacher Supervision, and we had so I got to choreograph for that. I mean, it was an incredible opportunity, and then I wrote a little bit, and like it was one of those things where sometimes being given an opportunity to write to do something, and like if it doesn't go the way you want, like it can sort of be a little scarring, you know what I mean? So I think I put it was like okay, but it wasn't really the story we as kids wanted to tell or anything. You know, it was just, again, this is so long ago, but I'm bringing it up because these are the things that sort of can induce fear, you know, needlessly, and at young ages. And so I just sort of put it away, you know, thinking like other people may be more interested in this, or just, you know, better, I guess. Yeah. And I was like, I was like crushing it in choreography, and then like that led to direction, and you know, I think I really just wanted to be so physically active, you know, that was really what was just where the vibe was. And then so I wrote like for my theater company, like with Michael Mahler, who wrote Exit Pursued by a Bear, we made an adaptation of the 9/11 report and called it a bipartisan musical fantasia. And like, I wrote the book for that, you know, and I had all this like shame, just like thinking it wasn't good enough, and like I'm not a writer, and all these things that just weren't true, you know, like at all, you know. And everyone's like, I love that play, like that's why I got a space, that's why, you know, all these things. If you look at it, it's like my own voice was the reason things were going well. But then you start running a business and you go, I have to just sort of not plug and play, but like start just implementing works that have already been around, or develop others, or you know what I mean. You know, you just sort of put it to the side, I guess is what I want to say. So now, you know, I wrote The Last Croissant because I needed something to direct, you know. And same thing with Airway, it's sort of a little sequel. And then, you know, kind of with Bear, same thing, you know, because in filmmaking, the visual is part of the writing, you know. It's less about dialogue, which of course I write in comedy, we're going to use it a lot, but it is a visual medium at the end of the day. And so many filmmakers write and collaborate with other writers, you know, who have their eye just on that ball when, you know, certainly production happens or whatever, or in the development of it, there's someone who's just thinking about the writing, not necessarily the visuals, right? That's a gift to have, right? Is like, and I realized that's what filmmakers do, that writing wasn't this thing reserved just for, you know, certain playwrights or certain, you know, it was like, no, we can all be a part of that, you know? And the veil just lifted because, especially with Kat, everyone's like, I love your voice. I was like, I just want to direct, you know what I mean? I just want to like direct an episode of television and call it, you know what I mean? And everyone's like, no. You have to say this stuff. And I'm like, okay. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't set out to be like an auteur.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't be saying this, but like, you know what I mean? I just wanted a gig, you know what I mean? Because coming from Chicago theater, like you gig, you just sign up for the next one. But it's like, all right, fine. So now I'm going to say what's up, you know, and process it and synthesize it. And it's like, I guess what I'm saying is the filmmaker is tasked with writing in a way that a theater director is not. In fact, it's usually better to separate those roles in theater. You'll be better for it, I think. Not always, but there's some exceptions. But it's like, it came back to me because filmmaking sort of asked for it to be, and now it's my full-time job. So I'm on
I love it.
a new feature I signed on to with a wonderful actress named Josie Scott. It's called Tailored to You, and it's a rom-com centered around a woman who is in a wheelchair, and it's Josie herself, and she's wonderful. We wrote a short version, which she filmed in March, and it's just a very seamless collaboration and incredible representation of and for the disability community, and it's just a joyous film, and so I'm starting that. I'm starting to write that with her, and you know, this is my job now. This is my job to write. So
I love it. If you are listening, or a beautiful listener or watching, this is it. Take the steps. If you have that short film in you, go. Write it. Find people to work with. Start filming. And if it doesn't happen today, it's okay. It can take maybe 2 years. It's okay. Just if it's really there and it's in your heart and you can feel that it's something you need to do it. Collaborate. I think this is gorgeous. Thank you so much, Jessica. Like, there's so much we've learned from you today. And one thing, the takeaway for me is this. I think it is just not giving up. Taking the steps and not giving up. And as I said, when I was home, you gave me something beautiful. It was really important for me in that time, and Valeria and I were both just like, okay, this was for research, but you know what? I'm gonna binge watch all this. Like, I'm not gonna stop. So thank you so much for your precious time. It's been amazing.
Oh my God.
I find it very fascinating that you just picked up the skills as you go, and you're not necessarily kind of planned everything in advance, but you don't shy away from the opportunity to learn new thing, and now this new thing became your whole career, and I just applaud you on that. It's beautiful. Thank you so much for this conversation and for your time and for opening up to us. It was very joyful. I enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you. I'm just so grateful, and thank you for this wonderful feedback. Take it with me. Appreciate it.